Jax spent 9 episodes being the character everyone loved to hate. Cold, cruel, funny, in exactly the way that made it hurt more when he turned it on you. By the end, he was also the only member of the main cast who fully abstracted on screen. To understand how he got there, you have to go back further than the circus. You have to go back to a house in Missouri and a boy named Leroy Mateo. Leroy was born in 1995 into a family that was already breaking before he was old enough to understand why. His father was never proud of him, no matter what he did. After his parents divorced, things didn't get better. His mother started seeing her ex-husband in her son's every mistake. If Leroy showed weakness, he was worse than his father. If he got angry or tried to defend himself, he was exactly like him. There was no version of himself that was allowed to just be a kid making mistakes. Every flaw got filtered through the lens of the man his mother hated most, and Leroy learned early that showing anyone his real feelings was never safe. Then came the conversation that changed everything. Leroy told his mother something true about himself, something he'd never said out loud to anyone before. It's since been confirmed that Jax is trans, and most people agree this is the moment he's referencing. His mother's reaction was cruelty first, then something that looked like acceptance, pulling him into a hug right after mocking him. That whiplash, being mocked and then suddenly embraced, was too much for Leroy to process in the moment. He panicked. He pushed her away, hard enough that she didn't get back up right away. Terrified by what he'd done, Leroy ran, and he never went back home. For months, he lived on the streets, sleeping in alleys and abandoned buildings, not knowing if his mother was okay, not knowing if the police were looking for him, carrying the belief that he might have seriously hurt, maybe even killed, the one person whose approval he'd spent his whole life trying to earn. Eventually, in one of those abandoned buildings, he found a headset. It scanned his brain and uploaded a digital copy of his mind into a place called the Amazing Digital Circus. Leroy didn't get rescued that day. He got a new mask to hide behind. The Jax we meet in episode 1 isn't actually who he was on day 1 of the circus. When he first arrived, he was scared, uncertain, nothing like the character audiences fell in love with. He formed real friendships early on, especially with Kaufmo and a character named Ribbit. For a while, things were good. Jax was, by his own account later, actually happy. Ribbit became the one person Jax ever told the full truth to. Not the performance, not the mask, the actual truth about who he was and where he came from. It's the only time in the entire series he does this with anyone. For a while, it worked, but the same fear that drove him out of his mother's house came creeping back. What if Ribbit reacted the same way? What if telling the truth always ended the same way, no matter who you told it to? So Jax did what he'd already trained himself to do once before. He started pushing her away, piece by piece. Denying conversations had happened, avoiding her, building distance before she could build it herself. This came to a head during what fans call the Snowy Summit, a confrontation where Ribbit finally tried to get through to him directly. Jax's response was to turn the blame onto her, accusing her of manipulating him, of reading into things that weren't there, when all she'd ever done was try to understand him. She apologized. She left him alone, not because she was wrong to push, but because she couldn't keep fighting for someone who refused to let her in. Not long after, Ribbit abstracted. This is the event that defines everything about who Jax becomes for the rest of the show. He understood, completely, that it happened because of him, and the guilt didn't turn into growth. It turned into a wall. Getting close to someone again meant risking the exact same outcome, watching someone he cared about abstract because he couldn't stop pushing them away. So Jax stopped letting anyone close at all. The bully persona, the constant jokes at everyone else's expense, the refusal to take anything seriously, all of it became armor built on top of a single unbearable fact. He believed he was the reason his best friend was gone. There's a detail in the animation itself that reflects this, one that's easy to miss on a first watch. For almost the entire series, Jax barely opens his mouth. It's not a shortcut the animators took. It's deliberate. Every time his mouth actually opens, something real is breaking through underneath the performance, whether it's genuine shock, real anger, or real happiness. His sharp teeth only show in those same rare moments, like the mask is cracking just slightly. Jax spends 9 episodes performing a version of himself specifically built so nobody looks close enough to see what's underneath, and something as small as whether his mouth opens becomes the tell. When Pomni arrives, Jax has years of practice at this exact pattern already worn into him. Push people away before they can get close enough to matter. For most of the show, it works the way it always has. What's different this time is that Pomni never fully gives up on him, even in moments where it looks like she has. There's a real bond that forms between them, one built partly on Jax, showing her what's actually possible inside the circus once you stop treating the rules as absolute. He teaches her to embrace the reality of the place instead of fighting it, and for a while, something like a real friendship takes shape. It doesn't last. Jax eventually tells Pomni that after she abstracts, he'll simply move on and forget about her, a line that cuts directly at her deepest fear of being forgotten entirely. She snaps, calls him out, and in doing so, gets closer to the truth about him than almost anyone else manages during the series. "Have you ever thought that this might be what causes people to abstract in the first place?" she asks him. He explodes at the accusation, except he did in fact cause it, and some part of him knows that better than anyone. The finale forces all of this into the open. After Jax abstracts, Pomni makes the decision to go into his mind directly, something no one else in the circus has ever attempted. What she finds isn't a monster with no inner life. It's a mind divided into constructed versions of himself, each one representing a different mask he's worn. One version chokes her the moment she mentions Ragatha, revealing how much Jax still cares about her despite years of treating her like an annoyance, and how deeply he still blames himself for what happened between them. A second version shows a strange, exaggerated scenario involving Gangle, less a real memory, and more a distorted reflection of how little Jax actually understood his own guilt over how his behavior shaped who she became after joining the circus. A third simplifies everything into being blamed for everyone else's problems, a defense mechanism reduced to its most basic form. Behind a fourth door, all 3 of these constructed selves exist together, alongside one final figure, chained up, playing a piano. This is the real Jax, restrained behind everything he built to protect himself. It's later confirmed he genuinely can play the piano his outer shell always claimed to have no interest in. The shackles represent exactly what they look like, an inner restraint stopping him from ever showing anyone who he actually was. Pomni doesn't manage to reach him by arguing with the false versions of himself. She reaches him through persistence, refusing to give up even as things around her get more chaotic and painful. Eventually, the 3 fake selves fall away, and the real Jax is finally able to hand over the key himself. It's the first and only time in the entire series he does this willingly. What follows is as close to an honest conversation as Jax ever has with anyone. He doesn't apologize outright. He doesn't offer excuses. He simply stays present, letting Pomni see him without immediately building a new wall. It's understood, even in the moment, that this doesn't reverse what's already happened. His mental state had already been pushed past the point where recovery was possible, something even Cain, at the height of his power, couldn't have undone. But being seen, fully and without judgment, in his final coherent moments, is presented as the one genuinely good thing that happens within his abstraction at all. Right before the end, there's nothing left to hide behind. No joke, no deflection, no performance. Just the truth, finally, far too late to change anything. You're not supposed to miss me. You're not supposed to love me. This isn't how this is supposed to go. It's the one moment in the entire series where Jax says exactly what he means, without armor, without irony. A person who spent his whole life making sure nobody would care enough to miss him if he disappeared, confronted in his final moment by the fact that someone did anyway, and having no idea what to do with that. In the aftermath, the show reveals what happened to the real Leroy Mateo after those months of running. He eventually found stability, moved in with a friend, and slowly rebuilt a life. He's confirmed to be doing well by the time of the finale, working as a delivery driver, spending time at a bar his friend Riley runs, the same Riley whose digital counterpart becomes Zubul. His mother, it's implied, was okay after all. No one ever came looking for him, which the show frames as confirmation she survived that night. He never went back to her, and their relationship was never repaired. But he lived. He built something resembling a stable life out of the wreckage of that one night. The digital copy of him never got to know any of that while it mattered most. Jax carried the belief that he might have killed his own mother for the entire time he existed inside the circus, never once getting the relief of finding out the truth. Every choice he made there, every wall he built, every person he pushed away, happened under the weight of a guilt that, in the end, wasn't even accurate. So why did Jax actually abstract? It wasn't really about Ribbit, not entirely. Ribbit's abstraction was the trigger, the event that finally pulled everything down. But the foundation was built years earlier, by a scared teenager who told his mother the truth once, got hurt badly for it, and decided the only way to survive was to never let himself be truly known again. Every joke, every act of cruelty, every moment of distance he put between himself and the people who tried to reach him traces back to that single night, long before the circus, long before Ribbit, long before Pomni ever had the chance to try. He wasn't a villain who happened to have a sad backstory. He was a person who built a monster costume so convincing that even he eventually forgot there was still someone underneath it, right up until the very end, when it was finally, briefly, taken off.